Okay, we have Harrison. All right, we're gonna do this. Let's do this. Just gonna kill the music here. My camera. Get Harrison. See if this. This is a first. This is a first. This is a first, people. You're witnessing a first. Connecting. Connect. It worked. It worked. Good morning, Scott Carson. We have Scott Carson and Len LaBelle on the line. And with me, for the very first time ever, Harrison Kopp from Australia. Welcome. Welcome.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Can hear you perfectly, sir.
That's great.
Well, it's great to see you finally for the first time ever.
Yeah. I'm
And I see you
getting
have
a
a
bit
map
of
of the world. You have a map of the
yeah.
world behind you to remind you of where you live.
Uh yeah. Oh, it's mirrored. It's mirrored actually.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's mirrored.
Yeah, I forgot.
I don't know if you can see everything I can see, but we have Scott Carson, we have Kevin Semister, we have Len LaBelle, and I'm not sure who all else, but we have four. We have four people.
Yeah.
It's that Scott Carson says it's that Holland guy. Hey,
Yeah.
Holland.
Yeah. This is proof that I'm an actual human being.
Yeah, and probably not Holland because we're pretty certain that he's American.
Yes. Yeah.
So we had a couple of things we wanted to do that I'm gonna continue to say this morning, even though it's afternoon for you. But we have a few things we wanted to do this morning. Where do you want to start?
Um, do you know if there's any way to get rid of the fact that I hear what you say in real time and then I hear it again like 10 seconds later?
Do you have
I
two
can deal.
windows open? Do you have one window where you do?
It's
You
possible.
got to kill one of the windows.
I mean,
Testing, testing, testing. Drinking coffee. Hello, Kevin Semister. Good morning, Len LaBelle. We're doing something different this morning because it's 7 p.m. in Australia. It's 7 a.m. in Canada. A miserable, miserable morning this morning. It's dark and it's cold and it feels like I'm living in Winterfell in the summer.
hmm. Hmm.
How is it on your end?
I can't seem to do much about it, apparently. I can't actually
Oh,
leave
crap.
this screen.
Okay. What about muting your screen or one of like? Do you have two windows open with the same? Can you
No,
mute one
I've just
window?
got. No, unfortunately, no. I've just got this one. Uh, hmm.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep my sentences short.
No, no, no. Just the one tab.
Okay. You want to continue?
Yeah, yeah. I'll just hear everything twice.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
So we got what, three things planned for this morning. Do you want to start with the list?
You had something to show, I believe, first.
I do have something to show, and it relates actually to the list. I found a bunch of stuff, and this is something that was kind of interesting. I drew this back in grade 10. It's the reasonable facsimile of the Judas Priest Ram It Down cover. I simplified the logo because I couldn't draw the Judas Priest logo, so I did a simple JP that I ripped off of the Priest Live album. But there's the world getting annihilated by a giant fist. And you can see it's got quite moldy over the last 30 plus years, but it still exists, which is remarkable. And I thought that was hilarious. I had to bring that out to show today because today we are doing something to do with Judas Priest. This is the second live stream to do with Judas Priest, but it's going to be a little bit different than the first one.
Yeah. Now, you did do a post as well earlier, like years ago, about the pronunciation of your last name.
Right.
And when I first read it, I didn't get it right, but I didn't pronounce it Lando. I just did Ladano without the
Yeah,
high
that's perfect.
sounds. Yeah,
That's perfect.
yeah. So
I've never really heard it spoken by an actual Italian, so I have no idea how it's really supposed to sound. But Ladano, Ladano. I like Ladano sounds a little bit more upper class.
yeah, yeah.
Kevin Semister says it's a beautiful morning. He loves cool, crisp morning. He lives about 2 hours away from me though, and where I am, it's not crisp at all. It's cool, damp, and dark.
Yeah, it's winter for us now.
Yeah, you do live in Winterfell now.
Um, yeah. I suppose I can. Well, before we go to the lists, I'll just open with one of Holland's questions. He
Sure.
wants to
So
know
we
just
have a
who the hell
question
is this
from
Catherine?
Holden McGroin here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Um, he wants to know just who the hell is this Catherine Ladano person?
Okay, I'm going to answer that actually seriously this time. Catherine Ladano is a world-class bass clarinetist, and bass clarinet's kind of a rare instrument these days. It's been largely displaced by the bassoon in a lot of orchestras. And she started playing bass clarinet in high school, which was remarkable. The high school had a bass clarinet. And when she left high school, she was so good at it, they let her to continue borrowing the bass clarinet. She is now one of the world's masters of the instrument, and she's my sister. I don't mind saying that she got all the musical talent in the family, and I got none of it. And
Yes.
Kevin Semister adds that the dampness can get the F out.
Yes, it's quite damp over here now in winter. I am indoors though, so that is fine.
Yeah, I wanted to spend my
I
entire weekend
suppose
outdoors, but sorry, go ahead.
I suppose we can start with the list now,
Okay, so let's
unless you
do
have
this in
anything else.
rounds. No,
Yeah.
no, that's good. Let's do this in rounds. I'll do me, you can do you and Holden,
Mm.
and we'll just go in a circle. Do you want to go first, or should I?
I'll go first. I'll go first with Hollands. At
I'm
number
just going to
11, he
quickly.
has.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Just before you start, I'm just going to clarify for anybody who hasn't seen this before. We're doing something called the Nigel Tufnell Top 10, which is a top 10 list from a band. But because it's the Nigel Tufnell Top 10, we start at 11. So take it away, Harrison.
At number 11, Holland has British Steel, and he states that it's overrated, diluted metal, and he specifically names United as trash. I concur
I'm
with the
interested.
assessment of
I
both.
find this interesting. He has British Steel. Well, we'll get there. Yeah. Okay. I'm good with that. I'm good with
Yeah.
it. I like United a little bit more than he does. A little, just
Yeah.
a little tiny bit more than he does.
I concur with him on both British Steel and United, but at number 11, I have Rock'n'Roller. This is a bit of nostalgia speaking, I think. It was my first one I heard in full. And I do like the title track a lot. And you got One for the Road is good. I like Cheese is pretty good as well. And even though the three winter songs definitely need trimming, they are still pretty good and
I
like
like your
tightening up.
selection. I like what you've done here. I like it. I also want to say hi to John T. Snow from Too Loud, Too Old Music. Good morning, John. Thank you for tuning in. Um, I'll go next. I made a list that's going to lose a lot of credibility for myself, and I wanted to acknowledge the Latter Day Priest era, and I had to think about this. I chose Firepower for number 11. I think it might be my favorite of the reunion era Priest albums. It's close, but I think it's got to be Firepower for my favorite of those. And I thought let's acknowledge that whole era of Priest. Number 11, Firepower.
Odd, I would have thought Firepower would have been higher on your list.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Okay. Well, at point number 10 for Holland, we have Point of Entry. And he says he likes the atmosphere and the experimentation of it more. And he likes how it's more committed to itself than British Steel is. And yeah, okay, I ran out of notes on that.
This is remarkable. This is remarkable. Holland and I are so similar.
And I have Sad Wings of Destiny in point number 10. Is that a good surprise or bad surprise?
Go on.
Well, with Sad Wings, it's got a number of like really high highs, but it's also got a number of really low lows. So it was hard for me because when I judge an album, I look at the consistency, how it is overall. So you'll find that there were albums which were more consistent, as in they didn't have as low lows. They'd be scoring higher than Sad Wings, even though Sad Wings has a lot more highs. That sort of thing. It's like my the way I approach reviewing an album is I look at the album as a whole, like not just the singles off it. So that's probably a side effect of that.
What's your lowest low on Sad Wings?
Either Dreamer, Deceiver, or just Deceiver.
Oh, okay. We got some comments. Kevin Semister says all of his favorites are starting at the bottom, and these lists are bananas. And John T. Snow is also commenting about Firepower, saying he also thought it would be higher. He really liked it. We have Tyler Weber joining us. Hello, Tyler. I guess I'm next. And staying in line with Holland, I got British Steel at number 10. I'm not a huge British Steel fan, and I was thinking about this a lot last night when I was making my list. I bought the Priest albums as a kid in a certain order, and I actually had Priest live before British Steel. So the first time I ever heard Living After Midnight and Metal Gods, it was actually the live versions from Priest Live. And I liked those live versions, but then when I got British Steel, I kind of felt the album sounded kind of flat. And you're talking about high highs and low lows. British Steel has some high highs, but I think it has some dull tracks on it. I really do. I think it's overrated. I really do. And you're going to think I'm fucked as we go down this list. But I'm very much in line with Holland in many regards. We have 9 people watching this morning at 7:20 a.m. Canadian time. It's incredible.
I have a feeling that not all of them are Canadian. Yes.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, the only song worth listening to off British Steel is Living After Midnight.
My first exposure to that, as I said, was Priest Live, but then I also shortly thereafter heard it. It was the wrestling theme song for a WWF team called the Midnight Rockers. Living After Midnight. Why not? Midnight Rockers.
Yeah. I first heard Living After Midnight on a compilation CD I got, and I put it on, and it was about song 5, and I got to about song 8, and I'm like, no, I've heard a Priest song by now. So I looked at the back, and I'm like, oh, it's number 5. Like, that was the Priest song. That's not what I expected, you know? I expected the screaming banshee wails and stuff. So I was pleasantly surprised. And then I was unpleasantly surprised by a lot of the rest of the discography.
Scott Carson had to leave, so we've lost the heavy metal overlord, but he says, cool to see you, Harrison.
Yeah, well, we've proved I'm real to him, so that's what we wanted.
That's right. You're real. And not Holland.
Yes. Number 9 for Holland is Turbo. He said he liked it a lot more when he was younger. He said he doesn't mind the synth or like the commercialness. And I agree with him, but Turbo's a lot higher on my list. Now, for number 9 for me, I have Firepower. And I like Firepower is very consistent. And I'm going to draw a comparison to Angel of Retribution, which is a couple spots higher. And this goes to the high highs, the low lows. With Angel of Retribution, you've got high highs, but you've also got the low lows. But for me, the low lows on Angel of Retribution is when he goes full Painkiller voice on a song.
Oh,
the exact
Demonizer.
The exact name, yeah, like that one there. Demonizer. I'm not sure of the exact ones, but like Firepower, you've got all these good songs, and each of them just has a little bit of a Painkiller voice on it. So it's like I sort of have to be like, I can look past it, but it does impact. But I must admit, and like Holland and I both here, our favorite song off the album is No Surrender, and that song freaking rules.
It's
That
a
song,
killer. It's killer.
that song made it onto a greatest hits album it wasn't even supposed to be on. And that would be my personal one. Like, I had the stipulation, nothing from Firepower, because I'm trying to match the Essential Judas Priest, and Firepower wasn't out at that time. But I was like, God, this song is too good. I have to include it on there. So I did.
Cool. Breaking your own rules.
Yeah.
Mirroring Holland, I have Point of Entry as my number 9. We both rated Point of Entry higher than British Steel by 1 slot. And I've always considered Point of Entry to be sort of like a carbon copy of British Steel in many ways. Like, it was not a departure at all from British Steel. If you can pair Judas Priest albums together, that's a pair. And Screaming for Vengeance and Defenders of the Faith, that's another pair. Ram It Down and Painkiller might be another pair. But I think of this pair, I prefer Point of Entry. Personally speaking, I prefer it. There's songs on there that are kind of sassy, like You Say Yes. And, there's some junk songs on there too. I don't particularly care for Don't Go. But Desert Plains, Heading Out to the Highway. There's some good stuff on Point of Entry. There really is. So I rated it higher than British Steel at number 9.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can only listen to Desert Plains and Heading Out to the Highway on Priest Live. Like, I need that extra tempo there.
Yeah,
It just
I get
bores
you.
me otherverwise.
It is a faster
Have we had
version
any
on that album.
comments since?
Nothing since Scott said goodbye. But we do have 5 people watching.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. So for number 8 on Holland, we have Firepower. And now with Holland, I feel like I need to mention that Holland stopped at Demolition, and Holland didn't listen to Angel of Retribution or Redeemer. He came back for Firepower. So he said that he didn't expect Firepower to be as good as it was and stuff. And as he said, No Surrender is his favorite.
Yep.
And for number 8 now, this is I've got Demolition. And Holland trashes Cyberface.
I almost said Blaze Bayley. Demolition with Ripper Owens. Not Blaze Bayley. That would be weird.
Yeah. Demolition is, as I was saying about like Sad Wings, High High Low Lows, Demolition is a song which is, not a song, an album which I find to be incredibly consistent. You've got quite a few highs, like not all of them are at the same highs as the highs on Sad Wings, but there aren't any lows as far as I'm concerned on Demolition. Like, it's a bit faceless and stuff, and not many of the songs stand out. Jekyll and Hyde does. That's easily my favorite Ripper era song. But I also think the production is a lot better than Jugulator. I think Jugulator, there's not as much clarity to the guitars. Like, it sounds a bit like a demo tape, honestly, to me.
Yeah.
And
I felt that way. I felt it sounded low budget. And it probably was. Considering that it came out in 97, it probably was low budget.
Demolition's a lot crisper to me. And Jugulator's not going to appear on this list, but I am going to mention that I do think, this is a bit of a hot take, I do think Cathedral Spires would be better if it was entirely acoustic. Like, you cut the faceless...
And a little shorter.
Electric.
And just a little shorter.
Yeah, you cut the faceless metal parts, you keep the acoustic stuff, because I think the acoustic parts of Ripper songs were some of the parts with the greatest potential and like the most unique and standing out bits. So I think if you kept it acoustic, like the first verse, and you kept the chorus because that's epic, tightened it up a bit, you'd have a really good song.
Yeah. Agreed.
That's my ramble on Ripper era done.
Am I next?
Yes, you are.
Number 8, Painkiller. Much like Holland and Turbo, it's an album I preferred even more when I was younger. Context is important, and I think Priest came out with a heavy, thrashy album at the exact time when I wanted them to. And when I wanted Halford to scream even higher than he had before. I just really wanted them to go over the top at that exact time, and they delivered what I wanted. But with the benefit of hindsight, there's some songs on there that are not that good. I think Nightcrawler is kind of boring. Um, Trying to think of some of the other ones, but there's a couple filler tracks on there for sure. Best tracks to me being um, what's the second song in that album called? Hell Patrol. Hell Patrol, Touch of Evil, and the title track. Those are some of the best songs in Priest catalog. And yeah, that's number 8, Painkiller.
Well, with Holland's number 7, which is Painkiller, perhaps one of the greatest surprises of this night is that I'm the one who's rated Painkiller the highest, because we'll get to that a bit later on mine. But
And you don't like Screaming Halford.
no. Holland on Painkiller says that he really appreciates the Scott Travis bit. He really thinks that was booting Dave Holland, getting Scott Travis. That really helped Priest. That's pretty much all he has to say,
100%.
other than it's a metal classic, basically. And for my number 7, I've got Angel of Retribution. Like, there's a couple of, like, I think that whenever Judas Priest have a bit of a touch with mediocrity and stuff, they default to that Painkiller voice because, Painkiller is Painkiller. So there is a bit much Painkiller voice for me on Angel of Retribution, but it's generally kept to a couple songs. And there's there's quite a few songs on there that are good, like Wheels of Fire, Revolution, Worth Fighting For, and of course, Loch Ness. Loch Ness is great. I don't care what anyone says. It is really good. And it's not boring. And I'll hand over to you now.
Okay, so my number 7. I kind of struggled with this album a bit. I put Stained Class at number 7. I love classic era Priest, but Stained Class just never quite sat with me the way that some of the other classic era albums do. Some of the songs still kind of sit in my head, not totally memorable. But then again, it's got stuff on there like Beyond the Realms of Death, Exciter. No, is Exciter on there?
Yeah.
Yes. There's another one on White Heat, Red Hot. Not that one. I probably should have made some notes here about some of the songs that I liked. But anyway, yeah, Stained Class has a little bit of filler on it, but for a classic era Priest album, I had to put it above some of these other ones just because I love that rawness and the pure metal aggression of early Priest, that 70s period. They just had like a reckless abandon. They just went for it, and just turned up the tempos and there's no question that they evolved. But I have a liking for that early Priest. So Stained Class, number 7.
Yeah. Stained Class is actually the only 70s Priest album not to feature on my list. It just didn't click with me. I was overly harsh on it in my review, but it still just didn't click with me. And I forgot to mention with Demolition that I think the lyrics are slightly better than the ones on Jugulator.
Yep.
Slightly.
Yep. 100%.
Even if Holland, in his notes that he sent to me, trashed Cyberface in about half the albums that he listed because he really.
Speaking of those Ripper era albums, I just want to mention real quick Glenn Tipton's solo album, Baptism of Fire. It came out the year before Jugulator, and he sang lead vocals on it. And it basically sounded like a bunch of stuff he'd written for Priest, but there really wasn't a Priest for a short while. And it kind of sounded like he put it out on his own, and his voice is it's very whispery. And I would recommend you give Baptism of Fire a listen just for some context. But I don't say this thinking that you're going to like it.
Now that you mention that, I can't remember which member of Priest said it in like relation to Jugulator, but he was addressing the press in sort of like talking about the difference between Jugulator and Painkiller, and he said you have to remember that even though you haven't heard them, there's been like 2 Priest albums that went missing or like didn't get like published, recorded that. So it's quite probable that that was one of those Priest albums. Glenn Tipton basically said, "Well, we've got this material. I'll release it then or something."
Yes, he had some great players on his album too. I believe Billy Sheehan Rando played bass on a couple of tracks. My memory's foggy here. Shannon Larkin from Ugly Kid Joe played drums. He's a great drummer. I'm just trying to remember some of the guests that appeared on that Tipton album. It was okay, and I totally agree that they probably had a couple albums worth of stuff that had to get trashed. They were supposed to be writing new songs for the Greatest Hits album Metalworks, and of course Rob quit the band, so there were no new songs.
All right, now to number 6. Holland's got Sin After Sin, and he says that with a few trims to the fat, he reckons it would be their best album.
Could be.
And for number 6, I've got Hellbent for Leather. And
otherwise known as Killing Machine.
Yeah, except Hellbent for Leather is better because it's got Green Manalishi on it. Which
Yes.
Killing Machine doesn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that must have come out as a standalone single.
I'm not sure. I didn't actually look into that. What happened to that?
If only Scott Carson was here to tell us, but he has left us. So.
Yes. As for Hellbent for Leather, it's got a number of good tracks, but I think it just has one not as good track too many from me for being like really, really liking it. I think it's just got one too many. Like if you cut Take on the World, I think it would be a lot better, and it might be higher. I'm not sure actually. It's still a great album. I like it. And,
Take on the World and United are very much similar tracks.
I
like Take on the World better out of those two by far.
Yeah.
But even so, it's a little weird, and that drum beat sounds very processed. It sounds very processed. Just my opinion. My number 6 is Turbo. Again, like Holland, I liked it a lot better when I was a younger guy, but I still do like it, and I think it's very unique. I don't think there's a lot of metal albums that sound like Turbo with their use of the synthesizers, but keeping the rock. Later on in the 90s, a lot of bands would go on to really incorporate synth into their music, but Priest were kind of pioneers in a way. And it has some great tunes on there. Out in the Cold, I think all three of us liked Out in the Cold. All three of us like the title track. We differ on Reckless, but I like Reckless.
We do.
So number 6 is Turbo.
We very much differ on Rock You All Around the World.
Yeah, I really don't care for it and never did. But apparently you're proof that I'm not necessarily right. And also appeared on Priest Live. So, I mean, it had enough of a response live in concert that, obviously I can't be, I'm probably alone on that.
See, the ones I don't care for are Locked In and Private Property. All the others I think are really good.
Locked In always struck me as a weird song to release as the second video. Like, it didn't really seem like a single video kind of track at all. I still really don't get it, except that they needed a pair of songs to make that kind of extended video. Kevin Semister says these lists are studio albums only, right? Yes, Kevin Semister, that is correct. For the Nigel Tufnell Top 10s, we do studio albums only, no live, no greatest hits.
Yeah. Well, for number 5, Holland has Defenders of the Faith, and he opines that it is their greatest side A of all their albums.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And for number 5...
Excuse me.
And for number 5...
Too much rasp in the morning.
Yeah. With its highest showing on all our lists, I have Painkiller. Like, I expected to come in, like when I heard the title track, it was easily my least favorite Priest song. It put me off Priest for such a long time, and it is single-handedly responsible for my views towards Priest. Like, it was not the song for me that I would think that for me to basically discover Priest on, more or less. I don't think it was the first, but it was close enough to the first. But so I expected to come in and trash this album to hell and back. But in the greatest surprise I ever had of it, I really really liked it. Like apart from Painkiller and apart from Metal Meltdown and the first 20 seconds of All Guns Blazing, every other part of the album I think is really just top tier heavy metal. Like I was like looking at it, I'm just like, well, it's like it's a 4. Yes, it's like I gave it a 4 out of 5, but I was just like, should I take off half a star because it's got Painkiller? I just couldn't bring myself to, no matter how bad Painkiller was, the rest of the songs were just that good that it offset Painkiller, and I just couldn't believe that.
And Painkiller is really the only song in the album that sounds like that.
The opening to All Guns Blazing does.
Sure. I remember telling a guy at school when Painkiller came out, I said, I thought it would be heavier. And he just kind of went like, what? What are you talking about? But I really did. I really expected there to be more thrash on it.
I think it's plenty heavy.
Yeah, it is. I was wrong. My number 5 is Holin's number 5, Defenders of the Faith. Our lists are so lined up, it's crazy. I like Defenders quite a lot. It was my very first Priest. I love Heavy Duty. It's funny, I like it way more now than I did then. I love the ending duo of Heavy Duty Defenders of the Faith. I love the Sentinel. Man, I love every song in that album. I really do. Truthfully.
Not
so
a
Defenders
bad
of the Faith
song.
number 5.
Not a bad song at all on that one.
Yeah.
Now, for number 4, Holland has, and I object to this, Screaming for Vengeance. And he opines that there is not a bad track on that one. I opine decidedly in the negative. And he also adds that he thinks Screaming for Vengeance is the perfect balance of hooks and power.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I'd
might
have
be
to
right.
disagree with that. I'd have to say Defenders of the Faith for that. But we'll get to that later. And
Yeah,
for
I'm
my
not going to comment any
4th,
further on this.
and for my 4th, I've got Sin After Sin. And Sin After Sin, there is a level of nostalgia here, because this was the first Priest album that I felt genuinely positive towards. I really liked a lot of it. Like with Hellbent for Leather, I think it's just one mediocre song short of just really top tier, really good stuff. Yeah. But I mean, it's got Diamonds and Rust, and like one of my favorite tracks on Sin After Sin is what's it called again? Here Come the Tears. Because it's such a unique track. Like it's only like 5 minutes, but it's got so much epicness just crammed into that. You've got like Child in Time and The Wall levels of epicness just like crammed into that 5 minutes. Like when I was doing my greatest hits, like the one thing I was adamant on was that I was not cutting Here Come the Tears, because I had to cut some because I had way too many, unfortunately. And I was like, The Ripper or Here Come the Tears. And I'm like, the Ripper it's a much more rocking song. It's a much more of a hit, but I'm like, I can't cut Here Come the Tears, so I had to cut The Ripper.
You got to stick to what you know. You got to keep those special tracks, the ones that are personal. You got to keep them on there. Did you do a 2 CD or a 1 CD?
I matched the Essential Judas Priest, so that was 34 tracks.
2.
And that was, 19 on the first one, 15 on the second one. I didn't care about track length because I can't be damned adding it all up. I just did 19 and 15. Unfortunately,
I don't believe I ever bought the Essential.
Yeah. This is the 2015 version. The reason I matched it is because it was the first Priest disc that entered my household. So I felt it was appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 4 for me is same as you, Sin After Sin.
Yes.
You know what I wish is the bonus track Race with the Devil was on the album proper, or released as a B-side, because I cannot believe we had to wait till like 2001 or whatever to get that bonus track Race with the Devil. It's fantastic.
Was that written during Turbo or during Sin After Sin?
It's a cover. No, it's a cover that they recorded around the time of Sin After Sin. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't remember who the original is by. In my review, you can read that, but I love the track. Sin After Sin is an album that I didn't particularly like a lot as a kid. I thought that some of the tracks were a bit maybe longish or boring, but I don't think that anymore. Especially love the title track, Here Come the Tears, and stuff that I didn't really like back then. I like a lot more now. Why can't I think of the name of the last song in the album? What is
Dissident Aggressor.
second last song in the album?
Um,
The one where he's
Let Us
talking about
Pray.
New York, Fire Island.
Hmm.
I can't
Name
remember the name
escapes
of the
me.
song. You know what? We're gonna cheat and we're gonna Google. Shit, I hate doing
Okay.
this, but we're gonna do it. This is important to me that I get this right. Sin After Sin, 1977. Okay, not the second last track. It must be Raw Deal, maybe? I think it's Raw Deal. Hey, Justin Gowden,
Yeah.
good morning. It's one of the very few Judas Priest songs that ever referenced Rob being gay, and most people missed it. I missed it. I wouldn't have known it, but there's their line about New York, Fire Island, which apparently the gay scene in Fire Island was really well known. And in fact, there's an American Dad episode that references Fire Island where Stan goes, "An entire island made of fire? How manly!" Kevin Semister is with you on Here Comes the Tears, by the way. Yeah, Starbreaker is a little cheesy, but it's still pretty good.
I
Um,
love Starbreaker. Thank you very much. Especially,
but
especially
it is a
on
little cheesy. It's a little
yeah,
corny.
yeah. But on Unleashed in the East, that when he's it's before the drum solo and he's just doing the Starbreaker parts like on and
Yeah,
like again and again, and that really long one that just goes and goes and goes and goes and just I know it was recorded in the studio, I'm sure, but
a lot of it was.
it's just so awesome that I can't like Unleashed in the East. Like I know it's recorded in the studio, but it's just so awesome. I can look past that, and I'm a live purist. But
Yeah,
this is
I
studio
get you.
albums. We'll leave Unleashed in the East by the for now.
All
We're up
right.
to Holland's third now, I believe.
Yep.
He's got Hellbent for Leather, and all he's got to say about this is that he feels sorry for Europe.
Oh,
And
because they don't get Manalici. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Good, good. I like that comment. It's a great comment.
yeah, and I've got Turbo. Now, as you know, Turbo did disappoint me when I first listened to it. Like, I love Somewhere in Time. It's my favorite 80s Maiden album. So I hyped up Turbo so much mentally in my mind that I was disappointed with it when I first heard it. But I think what helped was back in the 70s Priest albums, I would listen to the album, I'd take notes, and then I'd write the review immediately after, basically. So I'd be doing a lot of meat challenges there. And I think, but when I got to about the 80s Priest albums, I was like getting into Priest. So like I wasn't waiting for me to finish the review before moving on to the next Priest album. I just did just Priest. And so then when I went to write the review, I'd come back and listen to it again. So stuff like Turbo and like Turbo especially got listened to a couple of times, so it had that time to grow on me. And so I think that really helped. And I really like Turbo. Like I don't mind the synth, I don't mind the commercialness. And yeah, I like Rock You All Around the World.
They just blatantly went for the commercialness at that time. There was no hiding it. And they even commercialized their image. Rob grew his hair out and styled it, and the other guy KK down and got the curls. You know, uh,
I liked Rob's
I
Priest live slicked back here.
I prefer it in the Turbo video when it's a little bit more
Ah,
flowy
yes,
and
with a
less grooved
little more
back.
volume to it, I think.
Right, more volume. Right,
Yeah,
right. Um,
yeah.
but I liked it. I thought here's Priest. The studs and the leather are passe. They were passe by 1986. You
Mm.
don't see Bruce Dickinson wearing studs in 1986. And they moved on to the different kinds of leather, the colored leather, and it was more in tune with the times, and I was right on board with it.
Yeah, like I don't mind if a song is commercial if it's good. Like I can
Yeah.
look past if it's a bit commercial and stuff. Like I would like to also say that I'm sure people are familiar with my opinion on the cover art by now, but that original cover art is awful. Like the colors, it's just like I've got the Turbo 30, and I would not like it. Turbo 30 is so much better. The cover art for that, like just the colors and the look, and right. I'm
But
not
but
gonna.
those three albums, the trio of Screaming, Defenders, and Turbo, they all have matching styles on the cover. Presumably the same artist. But I
Yeah.
was talking
Oh
about this
yeah.
with talking about this. I think that with the Meat Man and how you get Turbo, and it's like not a War Machine anymore. It's a lady's hand, and it's like there was a distinct switch in tone from the leaping beast on Defenders
Yeah.
compared to you get Turbo. I guess I'm next with
Yeah.
my number three, which is Sad Wings of Destiny.
Hmm.
I think Sad Wings of Destiny was a very early triumph. I don't hear a lot of the lows that you hear. I like Dreamer and Dreamer Deceiver. I consider that to be a high point of the album. I like Epitaph. I like.
Oh.
I know. If anything, it's stuff like Island of Domination that I prefer the live versions of some of those songs, like Island of Domination and whatnot. Um, I don't know, Total Genocide. I like Sad Wings. I thought that they were really, especially with a song like Epitaph, I thought they were really pushing the limits. And yeah, so Sad Wings is my number three. I think it's magnificent. Magnificent.
Yeah. Well, Holland has in number two Sad Wings of Destiny. He says it was his first Priest album, and he says it's like Sin After Sin, but with all the prog without all this prog fat that he thinks Sin After Sin
No,
has.
wrong,
Yeah,
wrong. It's got just as
I
much prog fat.
I disagree with him there, although
Yeah,
I
totally.
am more partial to Sin After Sin than Sad Wings. I am going to go back a bit to like the Defenders thing for a bit. Bit of a hot take here. I think that Priest have had some legendarily bad cover art, and I think Defenders of the Faith is one of those.
I
They
like
have
it, but
some,
that could be just
yeah,
because it was new when I
yeah,
was a kid,
yeah,
and I thought, holy
yeah,
shit, what is this? And
yeah.
I wished I could draw it. I tried to draw
Oh
it and
yeah.
I couldn't. I did semi-successfully draw the eagle from Screaming, but I
Mm,
could not draw
yeah.
the cat beast.
Yeah. See, Maiden have the cover art advantage for me, but
Yeah,
their
no,
album
no
titles can
question.
be a little so-so. But Priest have wicked titles like Screaming for Vengeance, Ram It Down, like Redeemer of Souls. Like they've got some really wicked titles. But for my number two, I have Nostradamus. Well, Nostradamus, actually, that's how you pronounce it. When I read it in my head, it's Nostradamus. But yeah, I'm a sucker for like a grand concept album. But
Well, that is it.
Nostradamus is great. Like like The Wall and like why do I keep saying Nostradamus? Nostradamus
Yeah,
does
just remember the
have
way he sings it.
yeah
Nostradamus.
yeah yeah. Um, Nostradamus does have a numerical advantage being a double album and stuff. So it does have that, but like even with that massive, like really large track list, there was only one song that I was thinking, is this over yet? Like the rest of the album is just really, really, really good. I really love it. Like I love the I guess you could say prog, but like the keyboards. I think there might be strings on
Yeah.
there. I'm not sure if there are. Um, it is just a bit shy of say like The Wall, because on The Wall like every song is unique and stands out just about. Nostradamus, yes, this pronunciation is. Nostradamus does have a few that aren't as unique and iconic, but they are still good, and some of them are a bit samey. But like when the songs are great and they're a bit samey, that's not bad. I love the cover art too. And did I have anything else to say? Yeah, when I was doing my greatest hits, the other restriction I said was nothing from Nostradamus because one, it's a concept album and like that's not supposed to be broken up, but
Right.
two, because I would have there's so many track contenders on that album that I would have to cut so many songs that I wouldn't want to. I'd have to like cut a lot of Nostradamus and stuff. So I said,
Yeah.
in the end, I relented and I said, right, I'll have my favorite track from Nostradamus, and that will be a symbolic representation on the greatest hits, and that was Prophecy that made it to that one.
And that one was I think Prophecy was one of the ones that was included on the British Steel Deluxe. Yeah, okay, confirmed.
Yes.
I am going to skip my number 2 because I've decided that my number 1 and 2 are a perfect tie. So I'm going to wait till we get to number 1. I do want to say one thing about Nostradamus, though, and while the cover art and everything suits the album, I was disappointed that they changed their logo for one album.
I don't actually recall what the cover art looks like, but I guess you can like hand wave it away. I think it's a concept album, but
yeah.
Anyway, I suppose we're up to number 1 now, aren't we?
Yeah.
For Holland, and I object to this because he's got stained glass. Now he calls it a masterpiece.
Wow.
He calls it a masterpiece, and but I, in my reviews, in the tags, I refer to it as stained ass. And he objected to that, and yeah.
Yeah, that's a little harsh. It's a little harsh.
It is. I was overly harsh on stained glass. That was the pinnacle of my knee-jerk overreaction to Shrill Halford. That was stained glass. I was definitely overreacted and was harsh on it. Holland, though, does say, and he said I can quote this on him, that he's done the intro screams. He's pulled the intro screams to Savage off before, and he also says that if Priest retire Halford, so to speak, they should hire him instead of Ripper.
If Halford retired, I would say, yeah. No, I agree. If he can hit those notes, I know. I just remembered what they are now. That
I'm not sure if he can hit them, but he has hit them. He might have been younger when he did it. Yes.
If he has hit them, then he can hit them again, I guess.
Yes. And my number 1, you probably know this one already. This is Defenders of the Faith. Not a bad song. Not a bad song. Freewheel Burning is a bit close to, but it's got such a wicked title. I give it a pass. And the other bit is the very end of Heavy Duty Defenders of the Faith, how he goes like, "We are defenders of the faith." The enunciation, like the delivery of that, it's a bit to my ears, but it's the last song. It's 30 seconds. I'll listen through it. It's a heck of an album. And I think why Defenders of the Faith is my number 1 is because even though Halford is hitting those high notes, he's got some really good rasp, like on the Sentinel and stuff. Like on the Sentinel, like if you've heard Axl Rose singing Brian Johnson AC/DC, he's absolutely going for it, like rasping, and that's the sort of that's what Halford sounds like on a lot of Defenders of the Faith. And you've also got hooks as well. You got I think Defenders of the Faith. Sorry, Holland. I think Defenders of the Faith is the perfect balance of hooks and power. The production is slick too, and it's my number 1 album. Like I had a bit of trouble. Like Nostradamus has the numerical advantage on song titles, but I basically decided that if you cut Nostradamus down to about the same length as Defenders of the Faith, Defenders would win. And Defenders is my go-to Priest album because Nostradamus, you need to be in a certain mood. You need to have certain time available to listen to that whole thing. So Defenders of the Faith, my number 1, my go-to Priest album, easily.
No point listening to half of Nostradamus at all.
No.
My number 1 and 2, my tie, is a perfect tie between Hellbent for Leather and Screaming for Vengeance. I really struggled with this. I had them shuffling between 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and I couldn't make up my mind. So I just decided, fuck it. They're both going to be a tie. I really love both albums. We've discussed both of them in quite a bit of detail already, so I don't really need to rehash what we've said. Screaming for Vengeance was my second Priest album. Hellbent came a little bit later, but I think Hellbent's incredibly strong. Screaming for Vengeance is a perfect mix of hooks and aggression. So that's my list. That's my list. She's done. It's number 1 and 2 tie.
Yeah, yeah. The hardest decision I had was spots 10 to 7, which was Sad Wings, Firepower, Demolition, and Angel, and they kept switching a lot depending. But I'm happy with how they worked out. So that was
Well, I must
interesting.
say, yeah, that was fascinating. I'm looking forward to actually watching this in repeat.
Yeah.
Hellbent number 1 says Len LaBelle. Now I do want to say I'm glad we're at the end of the list here because it's getting colder and colder and it's starting to drizzle. So it's good that we're at the end of the list. But before we say goodbye, I believe we have an announcement to make.
Yes.
Finally.
Do we have to say goodbye? I could stick around for ages more.
I gotta get in. I gotta get inside and warmed up. I'm freezing.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Said announcement. Yes. Well. 2 months ago, when all this we started going into lockdown and stuff, and I had some time on my hands. I started my own WordPress site where the tagline is reviews and rambles. So yes, these reviews that I've mentioned throughout my list, you know where you can find them now. If you're watching this on YouTube or through the post, the recap post, I'm sure I'll give LeBrain the link. He can include that there. If you're watching this live,
Sure.
Unfortunately the URL has a bunch of numbers in it, so I can't recite it from memory and stuff. But
I can certainly post it to my Facebook after this stream, and yeah.
Yeah. Expect a lot of controversy. I am the Mad Metal Man. The madness in this case does not pertain to anger. It pertains to insanity. I'm a certified lunatic, according to LeBrain and Holland, and probably anyone else who's ever been on the receiving end of one of my opinions.
Yeah.
And yes. I guess expect controversy.
Carson is the only other person who knew this.
Yeah. Yes. Scott Carson did stumble upon this when he had the dedication and the unwavering courage to delve into 200 plus comments, although it was close to the top. Yeah.
Yeah. You let Holland, the cat out of the bag.
Yeah.
But this is the official unveiling, I suppose. Is that today? I'll include some links, and I highly recommend that you check out the Mad Metal Man. He's already, because he's waited so long to announce this, he's got a ton of content, including a virtually nearly complete Judas Priest reviews list and a bunch of other stuff too. He does a thing on, I believe it's Sundays, where you do the 5 versions of a song, top 5 versions of a specific track. Lots of cool stuff to check out at the Mad Metal Man.
Yeah, I would like to also say that the Priest stuff is a dual reviews with Holland because he's a fan, I'm not. Right. We want to let the sparks fly.
Right.
I do want to make 2, I guess I wouldn't call them acknowledgements, but there is a similarity between, like, my profile, the picture I use. I had to use a Lego figure out in necessity because I didn't have a knight action figure. I didn't have a guitar for his side. But it was only like a month after that I realized, shit, Mr. 1537, Lego, that's his thing. So I would like to point that out, that I'm aware of that similarity. It wasn't intended to be derivative. And the second thing I'd like to point out is my song of the week, Sunday. I picked that because of because of the alliteration of song Sunday. But I was currently unaware when I did that of, I think it's Too Loud, Too Old's Mr. Sunday song, and he does a similar thing. So I would like to point out that I am aware of that similarity. Like, there's no intended infringement there. And one last thing, I'd like to make I guess you could call this a public service announcement because I do have something to show up. This is, you can't read this, but it's Rolling Stones live at the LA Forum 1975. This is
Vinyl.
complete shit. It's a DVD. It's complete shit. They're probably drunk. They're probably high on drugs. Mick Jagger this is one of the worst performances I've ever seen. This is the only thing in my collection I regret buying. And
What's the year?
1975. And don't buy this. This is a bit careless of me, but I've been using this as a coaster this entire time. It's that bad. And like the insult to injury on this is that this was filmed using some of the highest quality film. Like the picture quality is superb for 1975. It's just that Mick Jagger is absolutely butchering all the songs, and don't buy that.
Fair
Even
enough.
if you're a completionist, you don't need that.
Kevin Semister just asked for the link. I have just posted the link. He is going to be subscribing to you, which is great. Subscribe to the Mad Metal Man and take part in the madness, the sheer madness.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for having me. This has been
Thank
great
you.
fun.
I'm gonna go eat some breakfast.
Yeah. I wouldn't
right.
mind if the people want me back. I wouldn't mind doing another one. I've got a couple of unique discs and stuff in my collection that I reckon you don't even have. And yeah,
We will do this again. We will do this again. Yeah. We'll do this again on a warmer day, though.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cold. Anyway, I'm gonna go in and warm up. I need to warm up and get this. Yeah. Anyway, all right. You take care, and thanks for watching, everyone. And I'll probably be back later today. So, ciao.